Hey guys, it's Jim Halterman from TV Guide Magazine. I am here talking with Mishel Prada from the Star series VIDA. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good day by day. We're in this brave new world that we're in. Full
Yeah,
disclosure, I did put on makeup, but I'm still in my PJs, so
I applaud that. I applaud. I think this is the most dressed up I've been in about 4 or 5 weeks. I actually put on a collared shirt, which I've just been gathering dust. Before we get started, I just wanted to send out as a reminder, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 fund for members, so the information should be below this video, so check that out because that's there to help if anybody's needing help right now. But we're going to talk about Vida and really your acting career in a lot of ways. I love doing these conversations because I love getting to know more about you as an actor, and not just for this particular role, but my first question is usually, when did the acting bug bite you? Is it something that's just from the last several years, or is it from the first moment you were born? Like, when did you start really falling in love with acting?
I started acting doing church plays. Um and I mean we would do these like Christmas musicals and perform them in shopping malls, and it was and just like little things to that. And then when I got into high school, I had a place where I needed to take an elective, and I took drama. And because it was something that I just genuinely enjoyed, and I was
Yeah.
doing drama and yearbook and newspaper and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm really grateful for that teacher, because now looking back on like our public high school in Miami, that there was there was a lot of sketchy stuff going on in classes. And it's interesting because when you're in it, you don't realize how important those things are.
Yeah.
But my high school was, like, I don't know, it was people would get mugged, and there were times where the classes were so overcrowded that there wasn't books enough for everybody. So
Oh, wow.
having that opportunity to be there in those times, and have with a brown bag theater, where during lunch people would bring their brown bags to the class and watch us perform Hey Big Spender at 14, which seems like a bit strange now that
That's
I think
great.
about it. So it was always something that I really enjoyed and loved. And I don't know if it's something that I always believed that I could turn into a career. And I think that there was a lot of fear, I think, for me, attached to this idea of like really committing to being an actor. So even though I moved to LA, I was always doing acting things, and I was doing commercials, but I think it was kind of this safety net where I was like, I'm doing it, but like not really. And
Yeah.
I want to say about maybe 6 years ago was really, maybe even a little longer than that now, seeing as we've been on VIDA for almost 3 years. Was really the point where I was like, this is something that I'm legitimately going to do and I'm going to pursue. Because I think LA kind of really disrespects actors so often. I remember I would feel fear of being at a party or out to dinner, and let me guess, you're an actor.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that vibe. So I think it took me a while to really get over that and say, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah. Since
So
I'm also in LA, I always feel like there's actors and then there's people that want to be stars. And
mm,
I have a little bit of a very small acting background, but I always respect actors because I know it's not easy work. So I love, that's why I've loved talking to you all these years, because I know you take it seriously. All your co-stars do. It's
yeah.
serious acting. That's great. What brought? Did you come out to LA just packed up your car and just came out with a dream, or?
Yes and no. I think, if I'm really honest with myself, subconsciously it was always something that I was saying that I like to do and would be really cool. But I came out for what I thought was a month and then just didn't go home. It
Yeah.
was very irresponsible, much to the chagrin of my roommate, who lived in Miami, and was like, wait, why are you not coming back? And I just kept extending, and then wasn't really committing. It was hard for me to really take that stand and be like, this is something that I really want to do, and I think that I can. But I feel really blessed because I think I had some really wonderful people that I was friends with that really encouraged me. Obviously, you always have the people that might be a bit, you know, like that feeling of like, oh yes, let me guess, you're an actor. But I think I also had some people that, one of my, you know, good friends, Clifton Collins Jr., I would help him read lines to prepare for scenes and auditions and stuff like that, because I just enjoyed it. Or I'd be in my friends' like short films, and so I was always doing something. But he was really, we had like a really big heart to heart, and he was like, I really think you need to do this and take it seriously and really do it. And it was, you know, it's really special when you have people really pushing you. And he had me, his sister, Veronica Rooney, who's a casting director, Veronica Collins Rooney, he had me come and intern for her. And I would sit in the rooms and watch what the actors did. And there was a lot of actors that I recognized. And that was really one of the biggest gifts and the most empowering thing I think that anybody could have ever done for me, especially at that moment, because something clicked in me. I saw these actors that I had seen on shows or seen on TV or films, and coming in, and some of them would have great days or not great days, or seeing a bit of the process. And it was the first time that I was like, wow, I can do that. Like, I look at that and I'm like, oh, I can do that. I got that. So, you know, it's all about a tribe, really. I think for me, it's been really finding people that support and encourage you, and doing that for others as well.
That's great. So what do you remember about your VIDA audition? Because I'm guessing you didn't know who would, you know, you don't know, you go for all these auditions. I know you go through a lot of them, and you don't really know, will this series go, or is this just a pilot or whatever? But what do you remember about your audition? And was it for Emma, or was it for somebody else?
It was not. I think I seriously did not really even understand. I'm still trying to learning the ins and outs of the way that the industry works. Because all I knew before then is I would like maybe write things and make things with my friends, or obviously I was auditioning for stuff, but I was like looking to get like a few lines here and there. I was like, looking for an agent. I couldn't even get an agent before that. Because, you know, I heard more than once that they had we already have one ethnically ambiguous person on our roster. So maybe like in a year we can revisit.
Is that what they would call it? Ethnically ambiguous?
Yeah, I was right in there with the ethnically ambiguous.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I heard it more than once, so it was interesting. But then kind of getting to really looking at the roles that I was being kind of pushed into, and thinking, wow, obviously you're an actor and you like to think that there's a lot of things that you can embody, but I wasn't Michelle Rodriguez. I wasn't a Sofia Vergara. There was a lot of these you know, wonderful actors that had really pushed the boundaries and created this space for who they were, but I wasn't seeing anything that reflected who I was, which I'm a child of an immigrant. I'm American and I'm Latin American. And so when Visa was announced on Deadline, I remember being so excited that a show like that was even happening, because I had written a pilot with a friend of mine that was somewhat similar. It was based in Highland Park. It was in Boyle Heights. But it was just off of, let's just create something that might be closer to what I'd like to see and like what I see as a reality in the world. And the day that we finished it, we were like, wow, okay, what's next? Like, what do we do? I don't know, you know. And then Vita was announced the next day on Deadline. And I was like, oh, wow, someone's already making this. And then really being like, well, you know what? Good. Like, I'm happy that this is being made. And really hoping that, you know, I was excited to watch it, but I didn't think that I'd get brought in for it. And then I did. That first pilot season, I think at that point I was like maybe the second or third pilot season that I was like actually a part of. And I had gotten a new manager, and we were meeting with agents, and, you know, a few of them were like, yeah, I mean, like, we'll give it a shot. And I was just thinking, like, if I was dating somebody, there's no way that I would go with somebody that was like, I'll give you a shot. So I talked to my manager and I said, hey, like, is there any way that maybe we just like hold off? And I said it kind of joking. I said, I kind of want to show up to these agent meetings with like a show under my belt, or like some, you know, I want to like really go in there and not be doing the song and dance of like, please, like, take a chance on me. And and then 9 months later, Visa kind of showed up, and I went in, and I was really excited. I'd read Fade, and which is a play that Tanya Sriracho had written, and it really started shaking things loose in me. And that was the year that Moonlight had won the Academy Award, and that started shaking things loose in me, thinking like, wow, my story is actually special and important and necessary, because I knew how I felt watching it and reading that play. And then going in, Carmen Cuba, the casting director, brought me in, and I had read originally for Lynn. My Lynn was a bit darker and kind of more like a different type of hipster, and that not going further, and then getting called in for Cruz and testing for Cruz, and it was the first time I'd ever tested for anything.
Okay.
And then not getting it, and then thinking, all right, well, like I tested for something that's wild, for something that I think is so important and so beautiful.
Sure.
And that was in October, and I thought, you know what, like, I'll end the rest of the year and get ready for the next pilot season. And then a week later, I heard that the showrunner wanted to meet with me, and it was to test for Emma. And that was, I didn't even know. I figured that out in the room, because they told me it wasn't a recast. They told me I was just coming in to read for a new series regular. So I got some sides the night before, and I went in, and I prepared as best I could, but I didn't have a breakdown. And in the room, they directed me into what they wanted Emma to be. And chose to be prepared for luck. I can say that.
I mean, I think that happens a lot. You hear that story a lot, where you go in for one role, you may end up with another, or maybe you don't even get that show, but then that producer goes on to something else and they remember you. So I guess the lesson there is always be prepared, or at least always make a good impression, because even though that role might not have been right, something else is.
Yeah, because every audition really is an opportunity to perform. And I think that, to really embody something that is fun. And I think sometimes we walk into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be judged. I hope I do well. I hope I do well. But you just prepare who you are in that version of yourself. And then it's an opportunity to perform.
Yeah. So when you got the role of Emma and you actually start getting ready to shoot and you're working lines and all those things, how do you as an actor find that point where you're going by what's on the script, but you also want to bring yourself into the role? Like, how do you find those, like, get those two things to meet? Or does that happen along the way of the journey as you get to know the character better and all that?
Yeah, I learned so much on this show. This was my first TV show. And when I went into it, I thought, all right, I'm never going to have another first. This is either going to be really good or really bad. I will not let it be mediocre. And I'm going to push myself to the limits that I can, because I think sometimes that to me terrifies me more, being like, that was okay. I'd rather someone be like, that was horrible. What were you even thinking? And being like, well, I took a risk and it didn't really work out.
Right.
And just go in and just kind of do the safe thing. So I think, I mean, with Emma specifically, there was a lot that I didn't, the character is not somebody that I know is instinctually. So I did have to discover her, but really where it started was like, what are the softest parts of her? And that I understand, like, as a person who, all of us, when you look closer, we're full of like regrets and joy and missed opportunities and, dreams. And where does that lie in this person? Because even though I may not be like a businesswoman in Chicago that was thrown out by my mom, but I can understand where that comes from, and and this person with so many walls has something so delicate and so beautiful that she feels that she needs to fiercely protect it. Yeah. So starting from there, and then also like the relationship with the sister, with Melissa Barrera, who plays Lynn, my sister on the show. Really us outside of working together, feeling like we were going to be really doing some stuff and maybe emotionally in our life feels really unsafe. So how do we create a relationship outside of it that when we're shooting, we feel really safe, kind of exposing our interior, like the skeletons and nasties together and feel safe. And I feel so lucky to have gotten to work with an actor, I think, that really felt like we both followed that path together.
Yeah, and was that something that you had time for on the set, or was that something you and Melissa had to do kind of on your own just to make those connections?
Yeah, I think I booked the show about a week and a half before they started shooting.
Oh, wow.
So we went out I was like, let's go for coffee. And then it was Halloween. We said, let's go for coffee. We did, the coffee place was closed. We went out for some champagne and some tequila. And it was actually really cute because the bartender even asked, he's like, are you guys sisters? And we're like, ah! And then somehow he didn't charge us for any of the alcohol that we drank. And then we ended up at like a Halloween party and 4 or 5 a.m. was like,
That's
but
fun.
it was
Okay.
enough to kind of bond us together and create that. And I feel like for me, I know if possible, obviously it's different with every person, but I really do like feeling like a real safety with the people. I mean, even with Roberta Kalinga, it's like, I think a lot of what the chemistry that I feel with her and we feel for each other comes from even just like our real life friendship and ability to kind of feel supported by each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing with VIDA is there's a lot of intimacy with the actors, but one, I love that the writers always write them so they mean something. They're not just there because.
Yeah.
But as an actor, how do you approach those? Because you have to work with another actor, you might be feeling vulnerable, or how do you get beyond that so you're just doing your job? Because I know it's something a lot of actors have to deal with.
Yeah, in an interesting way, sex scenes are kind of like a stunt, right? Like there's very specific, like, and then you flip over and then you move here, or then you sit on someone's face.
Like choreographed, yeah.
If you're Emma. Just a normal day at work.
Sure.
My mom's so proud. And I think part of it is also like, at least I know us on set, we'll just like joke about it a little bit. Because it's like you have your like covering and your makeup artist is like kind of in your butt crack, like making sure it doesn't move. And you're just like living the dream, guys. Here we are, just living the dream.
Glamorous life of Hollywood.
Yeah. So I feel like, those scenes, I think you confront a lot of yourself. I'm also surprised how unashamed I really was, because I thought it would be more of a bigger deal, but it was just, I don't know, they feel kind of silly and fun. And, it's less about sometimes revealing skin, but revealing intimacy and revealing just like your interior life. And with Emma specifically, you see kind of a bit of how she deals with being essentially like naked physically, but emotionally, it's this control and it's this need to kind of dominate. And I think that's what's really beautiful. I think even with the sex scenes, they start moving into kind of, by this season, we get to see her actually be really playful and sweet and find an equal in that, and getting to use that into tying in the story that reveals so much more of who she is and where she's at interior than just like, oh yeah, like this is just like a scene where they're having sex. And I think that, for us as human beings, like we do have different, our sexuality moves at different points in our lives and with our partners. And it's going to be different at the beginning of a relationship than it is going to be 3 years into a relationship, and getting to use storytelling to expose that without having to like say anything. You just see the way that these two people are in those moments, and that dictates so much more of where they are in their relationship.
Yeah, because the season 3, to segue into season 3, the first time we see Emma in season 3, it is an intimate scene, but we see her being very playful and very fun. And as a viewer that's watched the show, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen Emma this happy, which was a great way to fill in the story, like where the story is at that point. And then, of course, because I also know it's VIDA, I'm like, well, I know this won't last. Something will come up. Something will happen. But can you, just for people that are dying to know what season 3 holds, can you kind of talk about Emma's journey, at least at the start of the season, and where it goes?
Well, what's cool about that, the truth of it is nothing really lasts, right? Like, we're at a point now, you're at home, I'm, here, and we get humbled by life so often. And this idea of like, something's going to last and this is going to be the XYZ of, the way it's going to go and the plan. It's a kind of laughable. I mean, we're realizing that more than ever now. And I think Emma being somebody that's so about the plan and the way to go and the way that things need to be, we start this season with her really letting go a little bit of that and realizing that past those needs of structure and control really come joy, but also pain. You open yourself up to both. That's in line between love and hate. And, you know, and I'd like to think, my personal opinion is that we're actually better for it rather than living in an island and feeling, because, you know, if nobody's around you, nobody can hurt you.
Yeah.
But like, is that really true joy? Is that really true happiness? And I think, I mean, and it's part of going back to even acting. When you're on set and you're just like, oh, I want to do a good job on this scene. I want to do a good job in that scene. And usually the best parts come when you let things kind of get a little messy and then kind of react and just kind of go with what it is. You like trust the river, you prepare as much as you can, but then you like plop yourself in the river and be like, let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's fun. I think, you know, with Emma, that she is trying that in a way that she's never done it before. So we'll see.
But it's great because I feel like we're rooting for her because we want her to be happy and to find a good relationship, and this could be one. So it's fun to see where it goes. I mean, I've seen the whole third season, so I know what happens. I won't spoil that, but it's great as a viewer because it's all real stuff we can all relate to. So yeah, I don't have a question.
And honestly, like, all roads lead back to you, right? Like, it's about your love, your stability within yourself, finding yourself vulnerable and realizing that there is strength in that, because that's just part of who you are. Yeah. And I think I mean, I know as an actor, like, learned even through shooting the show that because, you know, like, at some point you're just like happy to be in the room, happy to have a job, and then as it kind of goes through, you're just like, wait, actually, like, this is the way I like to work. This is how I want this to go, and really respecting other people's processes as well, I think is I don't know, it's all just a lesson in life, truly.
Yeah.
And like I said, all roads lead back to you. Anything that's happening, it's not up to, you can't hold somebody hostage for your happiness.
Right.
That's crazy. Yet we try to do that all the time. And finding that, and I think, you know, both of the sisters really are attempting it, and sometimes it's poorly, but that's also sometimes the way it goes.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Well, another thing you're experiencing now as an actor is you got another job while still in the midst of this job.
Yeah.
And of course, I've seen your work on Riverdale as well, and it's a very different world. It's a very different character, which I'm guessing in some ways is very liberating because you're not playing the exact same thing. But can you talk about just taking that on kind of while Emma's still very fresh in your head? You're also playing this other role. Can you talk about just kind of juggling those two in your head and playing those two different roles?
Yeah, I mean, I shot Riverdale and then left a week and a half before VIDA started, shot VIDA, and then I think 5 days later after finishing VIDA, I went right back to Riverdale.
Good problem to have for an actor.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, what's really fun is with getting to play a character in Riverdale is just how fun it is. This is this hyper reality and this kind of Twin Peaks-esque teen drama, and getting to play an archetype, essentially, the femme fatale, and then giving her my version of that, what that is, because yeah, I mean, it's also nice to just do stuff that's just fun.
Yeah.
And I think with Emma, I mean, I like rip myself to shreds so that I can like bleed and suffer in public. And then with I think with a character like Hermosa, she still has pain. She's just dealt with it differently, and yet there's something so fun about getting to play. I mean, even on the sets, they look like these. I mean, they look like comic book sets. Yeah. And as a, you know, I imagine the little girl in me being like, guess what? You get to play in this world. And when I was younger, Archie comics were the only comics I ever collected.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
oh yeah, and so it was the only things I ever collected. And I would ask my mom, like beg her when we'd be in the grocery store line to buy them. And I realize now, you know, with us kind of growing up with not a ton of money, like that every time it was like a big decision. And
Yeah.
I had, you know, what I felt like were so many, probably not for real collectors. But I did love them. And I love that I get to be part of the world, and getting to work with another really amazing showrunner, Roberto, is, I mean, he's bringing a lot of women directors onto the sets and
It's
really
great.
giving people opportunities, and playing with the genre in a way that I think is really fun and takes risks that sometimes people are like, what just happened? But it's like kind of what I was saying before. I'd rather be part of something that's taking risks than
Right.
something that's just like right down the center.
Yeah. Well, and now as you're doing this last round of press for Vida, as an actor, how are you kind of working with saying goodbye to this character? I mean, maybe you already have because you've done shooting, but you're also still talking about it. But that's
Yeah.
something that, you know, there aren't that many jobs that last anyway, and this has been a great one for 3 years. Some last shorter, some go longer. How has it been
Mm.
for you just being able to kind of know that this is kind of ending for you, this role at least?
3 seasons is also kind of a beautiful accomplishment, especially, you know, you book a pilot, it doesn't go, or you do 1 season, it doesn't go further. And we got to do 3 seasons like right
Yeah.
off the bat and tell a story that I think is really important in our cultural climate. Uh, so yeah, I think that was some of the best advice that someone ever kind of gave me. And I don't even know if they meant to give me advice, as they were just talking, but you're aiming at a body of work. So sometimes you're going to get hits and misses, and some things will go or not, but like you have to imagine that your career is going to go for a really long time. And I know this was my first. You always remember your first. And I feel like as far as first goes, they're the best because I learned so much. And you know, I came in with a job, but I left with a family of people that it's going to get weird when we're not doing the show anymore and we're still unhealthily obsessed with each other. And it's going to get weird, guys. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what the future holds. Not only for our show, because I really truly believe that it's going to open the doors, and it already has, even if in a tiny way, for other shows like this to get made. Because I think it really, the characters that have come up through it, I think now people are going to be able to point to those archetypes. Like you can say, oh, it's kind of like an Eddie on Vida, or it's like a
Right.
Pincha Chincha on Vida. There's something really beautiful about that. And then, you know, just I'm excited to see where else we're gonna go and what the future holds for everybody.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Well, I'm glad I've gotten to talk to you for the last 3 years, and it'll be many,
I
many more
know.
for many other projects. Tell people where they can watch Vida, because the new season starts very soon.
Yeah, so the next season is, gosh, less than a week. Oh my gosh. It's becoming more real every moment that goes by. The reality that, you know, it's almost like a graduation. Like
Right.
it's not like an end. We like got our degree or whatever, and now we're moving on to other things. But April 26th, this upcoming Sunday, see the premieres on Stars, and you can also catch it on the Stars app. And the first season is actually free. So if anybody wants to catch up and is looking for stuff to binge at this point, I think it's I don't know, you'll laugh and cry and do all the things, and then maybe sometimes cover your eyes because, you know, it is a
Yeah.
very sexy show.
Well, and I think it is a show you want to start from the beginning, not so much for storyline, but as much you just really need to know what these characters have gone through and where they get to by season 3.
Yeah.
So I would tell people, like, yeah, don't start at season 3, go back to season 1. And there's not that many episodes. It's, you know, it's a good
Easy
binge.
binge.
Yeah.
It's an easy binge, a
Mishel,
half hour, so we're good. Well,
easily.
It's been so wonderful talking to you.
Good
Thank you
talking to you
so much.
too. And thanks for all the insight. And I think all the actors watching this will really appreciate it. So thanks for sharing all that.